Stop for a second. Right now, you're reading this or watching this video while sitting safely. Maybe at home, maybe in a cafe. It's warm, quiet, and nothing is threatening you. Now imagine this. You're standing on an open plain 68 million years ago. The grass reaches your knees. Morning mist slowly rises above a nearby river. Somewhere in the distance, pterosaurs cry out across the ancient sky. You look toward the horizon and suddenly notice movement. At first, it's just the trembling of trees at the edge of the forest. Then the ground begins to vibrate beneath your feet, faintly, rhythmically, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. And then, he steps out, 13 meters from nose to tail, 9 tons of pure evolutionary perfection, a skull nearly 5 feet long, armed with 60 teeth, each the size of a banana. He walks toward the river to drink, unhurried, because there is no reason to rush. In this world, there is nothing he fears. He stops. He turns his head. His eyes, facing forward, just like yours, lock onto you through the grass from 200 meters away. You have exactly 3 seconds to make a choice. But you're safe, because he went extinct 66 million years ago. Or did he? Today, we're going to tell you everything about Tyrannosaurus rex, the most famous predator in Earth's history. Not the version from school textbooks, not the version from Jurassic Park, but the one revealed by modern science. A truth more astonishing, more terrifying, and more beautiful than anything you ever imagined. Let's begin.
Where did T-Rex come from? Here's a fact that will blow your mind. 90 million years before Tyrannosaurus rex ruled the Earth, its ancestors were about the size of a human. Seriously. One of the earliest known relatives of T-Rex, Rex Guanlongwuchai, lived in China about 160 million years ago. It was only around 3 meters long and roughly 1.5 meters tall. Small, lightweight, fast. It had a large crest on its head like something from a fantasy dragon and, according to fossil evidence, was probably covered in colorful feathers. This wasn't a nightmare monster. It was an elegant, agile predator that looked more like a strange cross between an ostrich and a parrot than the king of dinosaurs. But evolution had other plans. Over the next 90 million years, the Tyrannosaur family slowly and steadily grew larger. Generation after generation became a little bigger, a little stronger. Their jaws became more powerful. Their legs became more muscular. Their brains became larger and more sophisticated. And then, around 68 million years ago, near the very end of the Cretaceous period, in what is now the United States and Canada, evolution created its masterpiece, Tyrannosaurus rex, the tyrant lizard king. Where did it live? If you could travel back to North America 68 million years ago, you probably wouldn't recognize it. A vast, shallow ocean, known as the Western Interior Seaway, stretched across the center of the continent, dividing North America almost in half from the Gulf of Mexico to the Arctic Ocean. To the west of this inland sea lay Laramidia, an island continent covered with subtropical forests, swamps, river deltas, and wide-open plains. This was the world of Tyrannosaurus rex. The climate was approximately 8 to 10 degrees Celsius warmer than today. Even Alaska had no permanent snow. The forests were lush and dense. Flowering plants, such as magnolias, palms, and some of the earliest modern-looking trees, were spreading across the planet. Herds of hadrosaurs, triceratops, and ankylosaurs wandered across the landscape in enormous numbers. Food was everywhere, and T-Rex, as the undisputed ruler of this land, took full advantage of it. How was T-Rex built? Rain. The head, a killing machine. Let's start with the head, because the head of Tyrannosaurus rex was a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering. Its skull measured about 1.52 meters, 5 feet, long and up to 70 centimeters, 28 inches, wide. But the most remarkable thing wasn't its size. It was its design. The skull of T. Rex was built to distribute the force of a bite almost perfectly, much like the reinforced arch of a massive bridge. The bones crossed and reinforced one another, forming a structure capable of handling enormous loads without breaking. It was nature's version of military-grade engineering. The mouth contained around 60 teeth, but these weren't ordinary teeth. The front teeth were conical, like spikes, designed for grabbing and holding prey. The rear teeth were thick and banana-shaped, with serrated edges, designed to slice flesh and crush bone. Its bite force is estimated at 35,000 to 57,000 newtons. That is the highest bite force of any land animal known to have ever lived. For comparison, a great white shark bites with roughly 18,000 newtons of force. A Tyrannosaurus could bite with nearly 3 times the power of one of the ocean's most feared predators. It could snap through the thigh bone of an adult Triceratops, a bone nearly 20 centimeters thick, the way you might bite through a cracker. And here's the incredible part. It didn't run out of teeth. Throughout its life, T-Rex continuously replaced worn or broken teeth. Whenever one tooth was lost, another was already growing beneath it, just like a shark. The eyes, better than yours. Here's what makes T-Rex truly unsettling. It probably saw you better than you saw it. Its eyes faced forward, like those of modern predators, giving it binocular vision. Its binocular field of view was approximately 55 degrees, wider than that of a modern hawk, one of the most efficient hunters alive today. This meant exceptional depth perception. Every strike could be calculated with remarkable precision. Nothing was left to chance. But what truly impresses scientists is the size of the visual processing centers in its brain. The optic regions occupied an unusually large portion of the brain, suggesting visual acuity equal to, or possibly better than, that of modern birds of prey. A hawk can spot a mouse from hundreds of meters away. A Tyrannosaurus could likely detect movement at extraordinary distances. Long before you noticed it, it had already noticed you. The nose, a superweapon. If the eyes are impressive, the nose is almost unbelievable. The olfactory regions of the T-Rex brain made up approximately 30 to 35% of its total brain volume. For comparison, humans devote less than 1%. Even highly trained scent-tracking dogs devote only a fraction of that amount. Its sense of smell was extraordinary. A Tyrannosaurus may have been able to detect blood from kilometers away. It could likely distinguish between different individuals by scent, identify healthy animals from injured ones, and track subtle chemical signals across its territory. It understood its environment through smell in a way humans can barely imagine. Every breath delivered a flood of information. To T-Rex, scent wasn't just one sense among many. It was an entire world. Legs, not slow. Hollywood lied to you twice. First, T-Rex did not slowly stomp around like a lumbering monster. Its normal walking speed was roughly 4 to 5 kilometers per hour, similar to a human walking briskly. And when necessary, it could probably reach speeds of 12 to 17 kilometers per hour. For a 9-ton animal, that is remarkable. Second, it did not drag its tail on the ground. Its tail was held horizontally at all times, acting as a massive counterbalance to its head. Its body remained nearly parallel to the ground. Head forward, tail back, perfect dynamic balance. Each stride measured approximately 3 to 4 meters. Its walking rhythm wasn't much different from ours. The difference was that every step covered 2 or 3 times the distance. If a Tyrannosaurus walked beside you, you'd probably have to jog just to keep up. arms, not useless. It's time to defend the honor of the famous tiny arms. Yes, they were small. Each arm measured only about 80 centimeters long. But appearances are deceiving. Each arm ended in 2 powerful claws and possessed enough muscle to support loads of roughly 200 kilograms. Not lift briefly, hold, with tremendous force. So what were they for? The most likely explanation is that they helped restrain struggling prey during an attack, preventing an animal from escaping while the jaws delivered the killing bite. Another possibility is that they assisted the animal in pushing itself up from the ground after resting. Either way, they were not useless. Laughing at the arms of a T-Rex is a bit like laughing at the steel clamps on an industrial press because they're small. They weren't designed to look impressive. They were designed to do their job, and they did it extremely well. What did T-Rex really look like? So, did Rex show that adult animals had scaly skin over most of their bodies? Chest, belly, tail, and legs. The scales were large, thick, and somewhat similar to those of modern crocodiles. But, and this is a very important but, young tyrannosaurs almost certainly had primitive feather-like coverings. One of T-Rex's close relatives, Yutyrannus huali from China, an animal nearly as large as some tyrannosaurs, was covered in feathers. The most likely reconstruction looks something like this. Baby T-Rex hatchlings were covered in fluffy down to help retain heat. Teenagers probably retained feathers along the neck and back, forming something similar to a mane. Adults gradually lost most of their feather covering as they grew larger. A giant body naturally retains heat, and for an animal weighing 9 tons, overheating was a far greater danger than getting cold. Imagine it. A young Tyrannosaurus covered in reddish-brown down, looking less like a reptilian monster and more like an enormous, incredibly angry bird. What color was it? The honest answer is, we don't know. Pigments rarely survive in fossils, except in a handful of extraordinary cases involving preserved melanosomes. But we do know several important things. First, T-Rex almost certainly had color vision, and possibly more advanced color perception than humans. That means color mattered. It likely played a role in communication, courtship, social displays, and species recognition. Second, the closest living relatives of Tyrannosaurus are birds and crocodilians. Both groups can display surprisingly vivid colors. Third, large terrestrial predators today, lions, tigers, and even many sharks, tend to have camouflage-based coloration, with limited areas of brighter display colors. The most scientifically reasonable reconstruction is something like this. A dark brown, gray-green, or earth-toned body with darker vertical striping along the sides to break up its outline in forest shadows. A brighter throat or neck region used for display behavior, possibly colorful markings around the eyes or on facial ridges. Not the bright green movie monster from Hollywood. Something stranger. Something more bird-like. Something more real. Cool. Warm-blooded or cold-blooded? This question divided paleontologists for decades. Today, the most likely answer is neither, and both. Scientists describe Tyrannosaurus as mesothermic, somewhere between a cold-blooded reptile and a fully warm-blooded bird or mammal. Evidence comes from growth rings preserved inside fossil bones. Much like tree rings, these structures reveal growth rates. Teenage T-Rex individuals gained as much as 2 kilograms of body mass per day. A cold-blooded reptile of that size simply could not grow that quickly. But Tyrannosaurus also doesn't appear to have possessed the hyperactive metabolism of modern birds. Instead, it occupied a middle ground. more energetic than a crocodile, less metabolically intense than an eagle. This gave it flexibility. It could be an endurance hunter when necessary, and a patient ambush predator when conditions favored it. Hashtag. From egg to death. Birth. Every Tyrannosaurus began life inside an egg. The eggs were elongated, melon-shaped structures approximately 45 to 50 centimeters long. The shells were hard, calcium-rich, and slightly porous, allowing oxygen to reach the developing embryo. The nest was probably a shallow depression in the ground, lined with vegetation to help retain warmth. A female may have laid as many as 20 eggs at once. When a hatchling emerged, it weighed only about 5 to 6 kilograms. It was covered in fluffy reddish feathers. Its eyes were disproportionately large. Its head was enormous compared to its tiny body. In many ways, it looked more like an oversized chick than a future apex predator, and the first years of life were extremely dangerous. Young tyrannosaurs were prey themselves. Large dromaeosaurs, other carnivorous dinosaurs, and even defensive herbivores could kill a juvenile. But if they survived, they grew, slowly at first, then explosively. Teenage years, the growth explosion. At roughly 10 to 14 years old, something extraordinary happened. Tyrannosaurus entered a phase of explosive growth. It could gain up to 2 kilograms every day. Over just 4 or 5 years, it transformed from a large dog-sized adolescent into a multi-ton predator. But a teenage T. Rex wasn't simply a smaller version of an adult. Its skull was narrower. Its teeth were less specialized for crushing bone. Its legs were proportionally longer. Its body was slimmer. Its skeleton was lighter. In other words, it hunted differently. Juveniles were faster. They could chase prey that fully grown adults would struggle to catch. Some scientists believe young and adult tyrannosaurs occupied entirely different ecological niches within the same ecosystem. Parents and offspring may have hunted different prey and avoided competing directly with one another. Adulthood, only 4 years of glory. Full maturity was reached at approximately 18 to 20 years of age. And this is where things become surprising. Tyrannosaurus didn't live very long. The oldest known specimen, Sue, displayed in Chicago, appears to have reached an age of roughly 28 to 30 years. Most individuals probably never made it to 20. That means the true adult phase of a Tyrannosaurus, from about age 18 until death, often lasted only 10 years. 10 short, violent, dangerous years at the top of the food chain. Then came death, old age, disease, infection, injury. Tyrannosaurus was not an immortal monster. It was a living animal. It was born. It grew. It suffered wounds. It became sick. It aged. And eventually, it died. Just like every other creature that has ever lived. Hashtag hunting. Truth and myth. How did T-Rex hunt? This remains one of the great debates in paleontology. The hunter camp argues its large brain, powerful sense of smell, exceptional vision, binocular eyesight, and ability to move efficiently are all characteristics of an active predator. After all, hyenas eat carrion too, but nobody calls them mere scavengers. The scavenger camp argues its relatively short arms, massive body, and limited sprinting speed do not fit the profile of a pursuit hunter. The modern consensus? Both sides are partially correct. Tyrannosaurus was an opportunistic predator. It actively hunted vulnerable prey, young, sick, injured, isolated, or weakened animals. But it also scavenged when the opportunity presented itself, just like lions, just like hyenas, just like polar bears. Virtually every large predator behaves this way, and there is direct evidence of active hunting. Scientists have discovered hadrosaur bones bearing Tyrannosaurus bite marks that later healed. The victim survived the attack. That means the bite occurred while the animal was alive, not after death. A predator attacked, the prey escaped, and the wound healed. That is direct evidence of hunting. The killing technique. Movies often show Tyrannosaurus killing with a single dramatic bite. Reality was different, and far more brutal. The first bite was usually not intended to kill immediately. T-Rex likely targeted the rear portion of the body, the hips, thighs, or base of the tail. The goal was immobilization, not instant death. Then came the shaking. The head would jerk violently from side to side, tearing flesh, muscles, and connective tissue. Another bite, another violent shake. Blood loss increased, shock intensified. The victim weakened. Only then would the Tyrannosaurus deliver the final, devastating bite. It wasn't fast, it wasn't clean, it wasn't merciful, but it was effective. And in nature, effectiveness is all that matters. It wasn't alone. Family. Tyrannosaurus rex was believed to be a solitary hunter, like a tiger, like most large cats. But new discoveries are challenging that idea. In 2021, paleontologists in Canada uncovered a site containing the remains of at least 3 tyrannosaurs of different ages, an adult, a juvenile, and a younger individual, together, in the same place, at the same time. That could indicate some form of group behavior, at least temporarily. Family groups? Seasonal gatherings? We don't know for certain. But the image of T. Rex as a completely solitary predator is no longer as obvious as it once seemed. Communication. T-Rex communicated. Of that, scientists are almost certain, but probably not with the earth-shaking roar you've heard in movies. Its closest living relatives, birds and crocodilians, produce deep, closed-mouth rumbles and resonant vibrations that travel through air, water, and even the ground. A modern caiman can generate sounds that are felt more than heard and can carry hundreds of meters. Tyrannosaurus likely communicated in a similar way. Deep, low-frequency vibrations, powerful infrasonic rumbles that traveled through the earth itself. You might not hear them with your ears. You would feel them in your chest, in your stomach, like the distant hum of a giant transformer, or the first warning signs of an approaching earthquake. And those sounds carried information: age, sex, size, mood, status, a complete language hidden in frequencies humans cannot hear. Mating and parenting. Female tyrannosaurs appear to have been larger than males, significantly larger. The largest and most famous Tyrannosaurus ever discovered, Sue, was female. Adult males may have been roughly 10 to 15% smaller than females. The opposite pattern seen in many large mammalian predators. Why? One possibility is parental investment. A larger female would be better able to defend a nest and protect offspring. We know that several dinosaurs closely related to Tyrannosaurus built nests and guarded their eggs, much like modern birds and crocodilians. It is entirely possible that T. Rex did the same. The image of Tyrannosaurus as nothing more than a relentless killing machine is incomplete. Somewhere on a warm Cretaceous morning, a 9-ton mother may have gently guided her fluffy hatchling closer to the warmth of her massive body. #It didn't always win. Triceratops, an equal opponent. If T-Rex was a tank on 2 legs, then Triceratops was a tank on 4, with spears attached. A fully grown Triceratops weighed as much as 12 tons. 3 tons heavier than most tyrannosaurs. It carried 3 formidable horns, 2 above the eyes, each reaching nearly a meter in length, and 1 on the nose. A massive bony frill protected its neck. Scientists have discovered healed Tyrannosaurus bite marks on Triceratops fossils. They survived the attacks. They also found injuries on Tyrannosaurus skulls consistent with horn wounds. The 2 animals fought, and T-Rex did not always win. A healthy adult Triceratops was not simply prey. It was a serious threat. Much like a lion avoids a healthy adult buffalo whenever possible, Tyrannosaurus likely preferred weaker targets. The old, the injured, the isolated, the young. Only when the odds were favorable would it risk attacking a full-grown Triceratops. Ankylosaurus, the living tank. Ankylosaurus was 6 meters long and weighed roughly 6 tons. Its body was covered in armor. Even its eyelids contained protective bone plates, and at the end of its tail was a club made of fused bone weighing around 50 kilograms. One strike from that club could shatter a Tyrannosaur's leg, and a broken leg was a death sentence. A 9-ton predator, unable to walk, could not hunt, and a predator that cannot hunt eventually starves. For that reason, Tyrannosaurus probably avoided ankylosaurs whenever possible. The risk simply wasn't worth the reward. Why attack a living fortress when easier meals were everywhere? An easier prey. Most of the Tyrannosaurus diet probably consisted of animals that were not the most dangerous, but the most available. Hadrosaurs, Edmontosaurs, young ceratopsians, large herbivores that traveled in herds and often offered less risk than armored giants. Good predators don't take unnecessary chances. A lion doesn't attack a rhinoceros if a zebra is standing nearby. Tyrannosaurus likely followed the same rule. Hashtag, the death of the king. The autumn of the Cretaceous world. 66 million years ago, Tyrannosaurus still ruled North America. The great inland sea that once divided the continent was beginning to retreat. The climate was slowly changing. Far away, the volcanic eruptions of the Deccan Traps had already been releasing vast amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere for hundreds of thousands of years. But T-Rex knew nothing of this. Like all animals, it lived only in the present. The last morning, 66 million years ago, a specific day, a specific morning. A female Tyrannosaurus awakens beside a Cretaceous river. She is 22 years old, fully grown, at the peak of her strength and experience. She limps slightly on her right leg, a scar from an old Triceratops encounter. The injury healed long ago, but it was never forgotten. The morning air is warm. Mist drifts across the river. A herd of Edmontosaurs is crossing a shallow channel a kilometer downstream. She smells them before she sees them. Blood, sweat, fear. She rises, tests the wind, and begins to move. Low, silent, massive, invisible among the vegetation. It is an ordinary morning, one of thousands she has experienced. Nothing tells her that 66 million years later another species will walk this land. Nothing tells her that someone will find her bones, that someone will give her a name, Aka, extinction, and immortality. Then the asteroid came. Tyrannosaurus disappeared alongside 3/4 of all life on Earth. But here's the remarkable thing. Every Tyrannosaurus fossil we discover today is not a symbol of death. It's a message. A message sent across 66 million years. A message that says, I existed. I lived. I hunted. I feared. I cared for my young. Today, the skeleton known as Sue, the most complete Tyrannosaurus ever discovered, stands in Chicago's Field Museum. Millions of people walk past it every year. And for a brief moment, time disappears. 66 million years vanish. And suddenly, there is nothing separating them from the animal that once ruled an entire continent. That is immortality, not in legends. In bones. Crew. Remember how we began? At the beginning of this video, I asked, what if T-Rex never truly disappeared? And I promised an explanation. Here it is. Tomorrow morning, look out your window. If you see a bird, a sparrow, a crow, a pigeon, you are looking at a living dinosaur. The evolutionary line connecting theropod dinosaurs to modern birds was never broken. Birds are theropods. Tyrannosaurus was a theropod. In a very real sense, birds are the living descendants of the same ancient dynasty. When a crow sits on a branch and stares at you with its sharp eyes, it is using traits inherited from a lineage that stretches back to predators like T. Rex. The same forward-focused attention, the same remarkable vision, the same bird-like tilt of the head. Tyrannosaurus did not truly vanish. It changed. And now it sits on your windowsill asking for crumbs. If this video surprised you, share it with someone who thinks they already know everything about dinosaurs. And don't forget to subscribe, because there are many more mysteries of our planet waiting to overturn everything you thought you knew.